Welcome back to the final episode of the Red Barn Enterprises Virtual Field Day 2020, the Summer of Change. I want to again take the opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your business, and thank you for the opportunity to continue to serve you and your farm each and every year. Over the past 3 weeks, we have had the opportunity to hear from a truly top-notch educator and innovator about the topics of disruption, technology, and multi-generational dynamics. Before we dive into this week's topic of growing as a leader, harnessing the opportunity, I would like to take this opportunity to again say thank you to Dr. Fields for taking the time to be with us this week and over the past month. I personally have gained insight into disruption and change in our world, the challenges of incorporating technology and talent into our business, and the dynamics of many of our customers' multi-generational operations. Thank you for the information and insight you have shared with us thus far, and for all the time and effort you put into preparing for this month's virtual field day presentations. Finally, I will turn it over to you, Tom, to bring it all together and share with us how we use this new information to grow as a leader and harness the opportunity.
Thanks, Matt, and I hope we're bringing value to people, and please recognize that I don't have any crystal ball at all, but know that one thing that I'm just deeply passionate about is each of you out there leading a business, leading your family, leading your community, the critical nature of that, and how important it is of the work that you're doing. So as we try to pull all this together and really think about how do you harness value out of this, and how do you lead your organization through disruptive, turbulent times, I just sort of pause, and I found this picture a couple of years ago of this immigrant family, looking across. You can sort of see the city skyline there. You can imagine getting off the boat on Ellis Island and thinking, okay, I don't speak the language. I may not know anybody. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But they did. And because they did, most of us have the privileges and the opportunities that we have today is because they figured it out. They went into the wilderness and they sorted it out. So I think leadership, it's a wonderful topic. If you want to just, if you'd like, I've heard all this guy I want. Let me leave you a quick thing at the very beginning, then you can shut me up. Remember, always stay tuned into Matt. But 5 Levels of Leadership by Maxwell. It's absolutely brilliant. And figuring out how to become that 5th level leader is so powerful. So how do we do that? There are 2 things, right? And I always like to think about things in 2s because I got a short memory. So there are 2 critical things that I want to share in this leadership space, and then we'll try to dive into some of them individually. The first is there are 3 must-dos. So this is the first one of 2 things, but there are some must-dos. I believe great leaders question the assumptions. They question their own assumptions. They question the assumptions of the business. They question the assumptions, not because they're trying to destroy it, but because they're trying to make sure that the assumptions are still correct. Secondly, they embrace the unknown. And if nothing else, that's what this era is teaching us is that we can weave our way through this. I'm a big Lewis and Clark fan. I think it's one of the most important stories in American history. And they were able to embrace the unknown. And the third thing is to unleash creativity. Now, I've had so many people say, I'm not creative. Nonsense. I don't buy it, right? Anybody in agriculture is creative. And I don't have a picture. I didn't have a camera at the time, but once upon a time, on one of our permits, clearly, I don't know if it was one of my brothers or one of the younger kids in our kind of community. I came to a barbed wire gate that they clearly could not close with what was there, and so with some duct tape and a tube sock, they figured out how to close that gate, right? And so, some cowboy were up there without their sock, man, but the gate was closed. Well, that's creativity. And I think we have to be really serious about these three things. Question the assumptions, embrace the unknown, and unleash creativity. The other category that's just critical, and it's people first. At the end of the day, after all is said and done, right? After all is said and done, you never, ever, ever see a U-Haul hooked to the back of a hearse. Right? Never. The reality is the relationships in our lives, that will be the thing that matters. At the end of the day, when all is said and done, that's how we'll be measured. And that's how we will have experienced life. So it goes back to this thing I said, I think on the last session. How do we connect our heads and our hearts? And again, I'm not talking about this in a silly, sentimental sort of way. I think every great warrior was driven by their heart as much as their head. I think every great entrepreneur, every great business person, every great orator, every great athlete, every great musician has figured out how to connect these two things, right? I'm a bit of a Garth Brooks fan, and number one, I've always been happy that there was a highly successful entertainer who was slightly overweight. It's always made me feel better about myself. But the guy's energy is unbelievable, but he also brings this very analytical approach to how to run his business. So I think we want to think about this in a real way. Now, I know for many of us, this heart thing, that does not sound like a comfort zone, especially for men. It's for whatever reason, we've been socialized maybe not to be able to deal with that as easily. But the fact of the matter is all of the magic, all the real value as a leader is on the other side of our comfort zone. One of the smartest things I've ever done, and thank goodness I did it. And I don't remember who told me that it would be a good idea, but I listened to it. And early on in the formation of the Angler Entrepreneurship Program here, which is a very unique program, we're very disruptive to the educational model. We do things radically different. But one of my mentors said to me, look, hire some young, smart people. Do not hire more of you. No more of you. They got probably more than they need of you. Hire young, hire smart ones, and then take the smartest, most thoughtful one and put him in charge of your strategy development. And I did that, right? And so and let me tell you what, I cannot tell you how terrified I was in doing that. I had to go home at night and take deep breaths and then remind myself, no, you're going to do this. You're going to see this through. I felt like Billy Beane in the middle of the movie Moneyball. Like, what am I doing? Right? And yet this young guy has moved us in a direction that's just magical. And it's because I got out of my comfort zone and I delegated. I let go of some of the authority. And that's hard. I understand that. So the other thing about leadership that I want to kind of delve into, and it's more about the organization, how you harness opportunity, is this whole concept of elegant simplicity. I've started studying a concept called human-based design that's really used by a lot of folks in prototyping, creating really high-value manufactured items. It's as applicable to a tractor seat as it might be to a spacecraft. But elegant simplicity, right? How often does our business look like this? And I've always loved this picture, right? This is a complex operation. And there's a little dark side of me that's always like, I'd like to see them try that at speed. But I think about a lot of stuff I've set up in my life. Man, I've set it up to be complex. Did it need to be as complex as I made it? When in fact, our best model for is it as effective and as simple as a paperclip, right? We don't use as many as we used to, but a paperclip is still used in this high-tech society, right? It's a very elegant, simple solution. So as a leader, I'm always trying to remind myself, are we designing this for complexity and thus chaos? Or are we designing it for simplicity and thus people being able to use it, like it, enjoy it, and benefit from it? Dee Hock, who ran Visa for a long time as CEO Emeritus, as he went out of the business, said this: simple, clear purpose and principles give rise to complex and intelligent behavior. I'm going to say that one more time. Simple, clear purpose and principles give rise to complex and intelligent behavior. Complex rules and regulations give rise to simple and stupid behavior. And frankly, I believe this is good government. I think it's good management. I think it's good leadership. I think it's good education. I think in athletics, this quote just applies over and over and over again. So as the leader, we need to really examine our own space in that. The other thing I think as a leader that's worth you considering, and this kind of violates our Midwestern niceness and our Midwestern sense of humility, but it's a question worth asking, and it's not from a place of arrogance. It's from a place of just aspiring. What would it take to be the world's best at what we do? And we even apply that on a daily basis. Like, we do that a lot in the Angler program. But even when I'm home and we're sorting cattle in the alley, I try to think about okay, we're going to sort 200 pairs here. Can we do this as well as it can possibly be done by anybody in the world? Can we be that good? And it's kind of a challenge, I'll tell you, it's so fulfilling. I love the sorting out. I didn't used to because it was chaotic. But once we decided how could we be the world's best at it, we got really good at it. Because we started questioning our assumptions, and we started saying, let's find the best models. We started learning from a lot of other people, and we got good at it. So I think there's value in that. And I encourage you, not from a place of like, I'm going to, show you, but more, okay, how could we get even better? How do we become the world's best at what we do? It unleashes your team, right? And when you're open to the input that they bring to the table, all of a sudden they have a cause greater than themselves. And as we talked in the last session, this newest generation of folks, they want purpose and meaning. And this is the kind of rallying cry that I think people will be drawn to and care about. There's another concept I want to share with you, and this is about quitting. Okay, we all grew up, especially if you're a boomer, man, you grew up with the notion winners never quit, quitters never win, right? We've heard that over and over and over again. And yet, in truth, if we look at really good companies, really good organizations, winners actually quit fast, quit often, and quit without guilt. They let go of things that don't work, and they let go of them quickly. They don't try to make, when the defense is only giving you the deep ball, they don't keep running the ball. They figure out how to pass the ball deep. And as soon as the defense adjusts to that and all of a sudden the run's open, we quit passing, we start running the ball. I think there's a ton of value in thinking about this. So what is it that we're going to quit doing so that our organization can actually get better? What things are we going to let go of? About 25 years ago, we got out of the seed stock business, not because we didn't like it, but because we couldn't make it work with our commercial division and make the most profit. So we let go of a nearly 100-year-old tradition. And it's been great for our business. It simplified our business. It made us more profitable. We had more time to focus on the things that mattered the most. And it was just a better deal. I mentioned Patrick Lencioni in The Advantage. It's a great book. And if you want to build an organization that's capable of innovation, it begins with people, right? At the very core, it's people, and especially leaders learning from each other and learning up and down the entire spectrum of the organization. That's why what Matt's doing here is so valuable, right? This is about creating that learning leader, because that's the leader that actually is going to make a difference. Innovative organizations get smarter over time. They make mistakes, but they learn from those mistakes and they get smarter and they get better over time. They aren't mistake free by any stretch, but they learn from them. They utilize full talent and experience spectrum. That's why I ask my daughter-in-laws a lot of questions. It's why I ask my wife to weigh in on things. It's why I ask, at our ranch, we host a lot of people because I want different perspectives there, not because they're going to drive the decision making, but because they make sure that I'm thinking about it in the right way. Transparency, find the critical issues, deal with them right, the elephant in the room. And in family businesses, oftentimes that metal elephant just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and heavier. We just keep feeding peanuts to that rascal. When if we just turn around and talk about the elephant, we could shrink him down to the size of a mouse and get the problem handled. So critical issue management is really critical. Recovering quickly from mistakes, not making such massive mistakes we can't recover, but recovering quickly, admitting them when we're wrong, being solutions driven and nimble. These are the basic levels of a really healthy organization that can drive innovation. And this is true, and you all know, organizations that are really good at this, right? And we know organizations that are struggling with this. So how do we do that better? Again, it gets back to this question, I question everything. And I think that's worth doing as a leader. Question yourself, question what you're doing. Let other people question you. And that for guys is hard, right? I think men in particular struggle with this, especially guys my age, 60 and up. Wait a minute, I'm tired of things being questioned. And yet there's so much learning and benefit if we can be thoughtful about that and then be discerning with the answers we get. Doesn't mean we're going to change everything. It just means we're going to question everything. And we're going to discern the responses we get and then drive forward with the best solutions. Look, these conversations and being at the table together, they just matter, right? And chance favors the connected mind. If we're connected with other people, we have a better chance of being successful. And I think that's just critical and it's worth thinking about. It may not come easily to us, but it is a skill that we can learn. And at the very least, we can delegate to somebody to be the chief listening officer in our organization. Somebody who is literally going to get a finger on the pulse of what's going on inside that business. Tom Peters calls it management by wandering around, and there's value in that, right? If you're on the floor of the plant, you have a better chance of knowing what's going on in your organization. The last book I'm going to recommend, and I think this is a good one, and it's called The 10 Faces of Innovation by a guy named David Kelly, who founded the company IDEO, which is a very, very successful design company in Palo Alto, California. Right, I've learned a ton from them, just studying them and watching them. And while they operate usually not in the ag space, I've learned to bring some of what they've learned to the table. And they say, look, an organization needs 3 basic blocks of talent or innovators. They need a learning group, they need an organizing group, and they need a building group. The learning group is comprised of 3 kinds of innovators. The anthropologist, the person who digs around and figures out why did they do that in the past? What can I learn from that? The experimenter who says, I don't care what they did in the past, let's try something and see what happens. And then the cross-pollinator who says, I'm going to go watch what somebody else did and I'm going to bring it back to this side of the business, right? And that sort of cross-training kind of approach. Then the organizers, those are folks who know how to get over obstacles, know how to collaborate, and know how to direct change. And then the builders are architects, set designers, caregivers, storytellers. Those are the folks who actually build out the messaging, build out the structure, build out the processes that make the organization actually better and healthier. Now, it's hard to sometimes find all of that just inside of one family or inside of what you're doing as an individual. That's why asking outside voices to the table can help you. But I think this is worth thinking about it. It can be applied to agriculture. It can be applied to all kinds of places. I think education certainly has to go through this. There are just so many ways that we can use innovation thinking to move our business. Well, I'm going to finish with this last slide. I just think this is an important one. It's a great reminder to leaders is, look, the future is not some place we are going, but one we are creating, even in the midst of disruption, even in the midst of COVID-19, right? I love what Matt's doing here, right? He's protecting people. He's protecting the people he cares about until we get through this thing, right? And we are going to get through it, and we're going to get, a year from now, Matt, you better make sure you got a really good meal because these guys are going to be super hungry.
I got a plan for that one already.
but think about it, right? Instead of just throwing hands up in the air, Matt's just kept going, and he's bringing you value. You can create the future, right? It doesn't mean you can control all the variables. It doesn't mean that you always have all the options you want. But the paths to the future are not found. They are created. This is the time for trailblazers. And the reality is, as the leader, the activity of making them changes both the maker and the destination, right? Great leaders are changed by the experience of leadership. They're transformed, they're improved, they find value, they find parts of themselves they didn't even know they had. And by virtue of that, they change the destination of their organizations. That's the critical component of all of this, is can we move, we've been talking a lot about we have a lot of students who want to go back to the farm. And we're supportive of that, but we're trying to change their mindset. And the mindset is this: don't think about going back to the farm. Think about how to take the farm forward, right? There's a different mindset there. And as the current leadership, as the current generation in charge, how do you help prepare that next generation to take the farm forward, to make your community stronger, to keep democracy alive, and to give us a republic we care about living in? It's been great to be with you, and Matt, thanks so much for the opportunity to engage with you and your family, and certainly all the wonderful customers you have that you're serving out there.
Well, I appreciate that, Tom. This might be the favorite of my favorite topic of the four for me. I get into this stuff sometimes. I listen to the John Maxwell podcast when I'm on trips to Omaha every once in a while. But I starred a whole bunch of stuff in the notebook as I took like 6 pages of notes in this last session. So I thought something you talked about that we all need to get our heads around sometimes, that the paperclip and how simple it is, and how complex is really kind of a stupid thing, but simple is intelligent. I thought that was a good point. So what can we do, on the farm, simple, that we're doing right now that's complex? And then this question everything. I've got little kids, and though my oldest one, she's 6 now, but it's like unending questions. Why? And I'm with you. Eventually you're like, okay, I'm done with this. The answer I give is because that's the way God made it. That's the final. We're done now. Okay. And then I like the idea of management by wandering around. So this is something like I've recognized some growers hardly ever wander around. They don't go walk in their fields. They just drive by them. And I think right now, this year especially, because we've had kind of volatile weather conditions with some very high winds, some really excessive drought and heat stress, and then other areas of the farm maybe got, good rains. We have a tendency, we drive by, man, the first 3 rows off the road look pretty good. Are we managing by wandering around though? Do we actually know what's out there in the field before we get there? Experienced some of that with some customers already here this year. And then you talked about the outside voices. One of the mentors that I work with, Rod, he always says, and I think it actually is a quote from somebody else, that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so I always think about that some myself, and I think, I don't even spend time with 5 people, so my average is pretty low because I got some goose eggs racking up there, and then your final slide and your final comment there, the future being a place that we're creating. The path to the future isn't found, it's created. I think that's really powerful. And I think, take the farm forward. Don't go back to the farm. I was really struck by those comments.
I think there's such an opportunity, today for farming and to rethink where we're headed. The reality is that the world depends on us, but we're gonna have the opportunity to grow our businesses and create business models that actually have value beyond the land itself if we can just be innovative. And I think that's the exciting age we're in. Embrace that next generation, all of you, because they get a bad rap. I cannot tell you. We have 120 young people in our program here at the university. They hustle, they will work, they show up early, they stay late, they will fight for what they believe in, they will support each other. This next generation, you raise great kids, embrace them, and let's get them back into the game.
Great. Thanks for those final comments again, Tom. Well, we finally made it to the finish line of this year's Red Barn Enterprises Virtual Field Day 2020, the Summer of Change. Thanks again to Dr. Field for joining us and sharing his knowledge, information, and insights into our world and business. And thank you for tuning in over the past month. Until next time, I'm Matt Long, helping you farm differently, providing information you can't get anywhere else.